Hello, I'm Nolan Clark. Welcome to the class today. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a realistic hummingbird. We'll get that nice little glistening effect on the feathers. It's not a difficult technique. Let me show you what the photograph looks like. Then we'll plan it out from there. Just look at that beautiful shimmer on those feathers. And it's also quite a nice little action shot. So what I have done is just played around to form myself a little bit of a scene. I'm not going to show you the whole painting of the scene today. If you're a patron, you can go to my website. There you can go and watch the entire class. All we're going to do in this class today is show you how to do the hummingbird. So this is essentially the full picture that we're going to be painting, and I'll be painting it on a palette. So at this point I have painted the background and got that bokeh effect. So if you do want to know how to paint the bokeh effect, there is a class here on YouTube that shows you how to do that. Just go and take a look, and I'll link to it in the description below as well. So let's head over to the palette and I'll show you what does the painting look like at this stage. So to get to this point, I've sealed the wooden palette, I've masked off the bird and the flowers, and I've painted the background. Now we can go ahead and paint the hummingbird. Alrighty, let's get some colors down there for the bird. So what I'm seeing there for the wing is burnt umber. So I'm going to put some burnt umber down there. And then the body itself, around this areas over here, is pretty much like a black. So I'm going to put down some Paynes grey. And then inside the feathers, we're definitely going to need some white. So I'm going to put down some white there so that we can mix those two guys into each other, because those are, it's one individual area of the bird. So we're going to do that over here. And then we move on to the body. So there's body colors going to go there. So after the black, there's some blues. So what I'm putting down there is a Pthalo blue. And then there's greens. So here I'm going to use a Pthalo green. That should be able to give us that nice little emeraldy color. A viridian would also work quite nice for that, to be honest. And then we've got some pinky purples. So I think for that pinky purple, a Dioxazine purple should work quite nice. Let's put some of that down. Yeah, I think that's the majority of the colors that I'm seeing there. So let's start with that back wing over there. It's quite light. So we'll take some white, work just a little bit of the burnt umber into that, just to get a very low grey. Let's block that in. So we do now want these wings to look like they're in motion. So what we're going to do is not keep these edges too sharp. And this brush that I'm using here is just a very small little soft filbert. Very small soft filbert. There you can see what it looks like. Oh, so I'm bringing this down there into that corner. Now, because it is still slightly sinking into the wood, And this paint has now started drying up on me, so I'm just going to use whatever paint is available. And I'm going to just fluff up this edge a little bit. Just to get it out of focus. All you're trying to do is just break up that hard edge that you formed there. So I'm just going over that edge. So all that's happening is that tiny amount of paint that's left on the brush is now forming basically a glaze. So not too much here, more on the outside edge, because here there's lots of movement, there it's not moving so much. There we go, there's a nice little fluffy edge there. That should give us a feeling of movement. Alright, so then we can see that there's suggestions of other, multiple feathers in the wing. So we just use a lighter version, so just pick up some more white. Just drag it in there like that. As before, we don't need this to be detailed because it's all in movement. So just very quickly drag it in there and leave it. That'll do, just to have a few little different tones over there. Great. This wing over here, on the other hand, is a whole different ball game. So I'm going to wash the brush to get him nice and clean again, because you've got that see-through effect there that we need to try and get. So your first reaction is to block this whole wing in with a lighter color, but then you're going to miss where these little lines are. So I'm going to start off with the burnt umber instead. Still have just a little bit of white in it. So it's not quite, it's sort of that lighter color running along over there in that vicinity. I think let's mix a fair amount of that. And let's start getting those darker overlapping bits in. So here at the top we do want a nice found line, nice sharp edge. And that found edge makes that back one there go thinner and thinner and thinner. Because the found line over here just shows you that it's two different things. It separates them. Alrighty. Seems to be a bit broader over there. So now I'm just going to use those initial little lines that I sketched for myself. I put them sort of in the center of that brown. So if you need your paint to be thinner, then all you can do is just take your water and just dip the tip of the brush inside the water and then continue mixing on the palette. Because when I can't spray anything over there like we usually do with the acrylic. The same thing if you were using oils, you would be able to just keep a dropper with some medium. Just keep it in your other hand, and then just do a little drop at a time, so that you're only thinning down the paint that you need, so that you can go thicker and thinner from the same pile of paint. Alrighty, so here things are becoming quite broad in this area and quite dark. So I'll pretty much just block everything in over there for now. Great, I'm going to wipe off the excess of this paint on the brush, because now we can go, say, darker. Maybe we'll even use a smaller brush. I think I'll use a fine liner for this guy. I just pick up some of this dark paint as it is. And I'm going to just drag in some of these darks where I see them. So this is now a great opportunity for me to make sure I get that there, a nice little found line there. So I am picking up the paint in a chisel point. So I'm picking it up like this, then I turn the brush 180 degrees and I pick some more paint up like that. Just so that it starts off with a nice thin line over there. Alrighty, so over here we do have a few little spots that are not quite as dark inside the dark area. So there I'm just trying to create that little bit of a the shadow of the back wing. So as I'm putting the paint down over here, I'm just keeping it quite dabs and dashes so that it's not solid. And that's where it's giving us that bit of a texture. Are all these things identical? No. Are they similar? Yeah, that's good enough. As long as you create that impression that there's different feathers. That's all you need. Alright, so now let's go over to that lighter color in between these darks, which is around this vicinity here. So again, I'm picking up the paint, nice chisel point. So that's got a lot more white in it. And I'm just using that chisel point to get that nice, sharp little line in between there. So we'll do 1 or 2 of them like that. That one doesn't come quite to there. There's another little color in between. Just 1 or 2 like that. That's enough for now. Let's go to a darker color. Just a bit of a darker tonal value. And let's give this a bit of a shading here. So I'm just doing 1 or 2 at a time, simply because working in acrylic, you don't want this paint to dry on you. Okay, then it goes slightly darker towards the end, so working a little bit more. Of the burnt umber. Then it does seem to go slightly lighter on the tip again. Okay, and then in between here, they're darker again. So just little chops and changes between these tonal values to see what's going on in between those lighter bits of feather there. So now remember, if you're working in acrylic, acrylic likes to be layered, so don't be shy. Let the paint dry, add as many layers as you need. Okay, I'm going to do the same going further down. Start off light, darken, some of these tips here are getting quite dark. Right, so don't forget to keep dipping your brush just a tip in the water if your paint is going dry on you. But yeah, also don't worry if it's going a little bit stripy. It's just going to give you that nice little feathery effect, so that's quite alright. Alright, let's see. So over here, there seems to be an extra little one of those ribs. That kind of went missing. So I'm going to bring some of this lighter color. Remember we created that little shape for that shadow over there? I'm going to just bring some of those colors in between over there just to break it up. So again, it keeps looking like it's transparent. Cool, let's continue working down, do a few more ribs. Here it's just not quite as light as up there. So I'm just adding just darker tonal values of the same color. At the end of the day, make sure you've got all the wood nicely covered. When possibly in your case, the canvas. That's all I'm doing now, is just improving on these shapes a little bit. I didn't quite get those initial shapes over here. They changed from there to here. They got different shapes. Here they're a bit more rounder or oval, where there they're more straight. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I am now seeing just a little bit of burnt sienna. Just a tiny touch of burnt sienna, like over there, for example. So I'm going to squeeze in just a touch of burnt sienna over there. Take that, let's get some white into it. Let's just link those guys up. Be careful not to go too far that way, otherwise we're going to have problems with those nice brighter colors later. I'm just adding those few little dabs and dashes and touches of this burnt sienna color here and there. Maybe even just a touch of it here in the wings as well, just for a bit of colour. Just a few little slashes and dashes. Why not? That'll add some extra texture over here. Even though I'm not actually seeing it on the picture, I'm using my artist license there just to get that little bit of, just a little bit of extra colour in there. Right, so all that there is dry. Our white does tend to dry darker. So I'm going to add another layer of white over there. And I'm going to try not to thin it down, or rather just use multiple little short strokes. Because if you thin the paint down, it becomes transparent. So when you lay him down, he looks fine, and then as he dries on you, he sort of becomes more transparent. Okay, this now is just disappearing up here towards the back. So maybe put some down and just drag your finger along there. Yeah, I think for the most part that looks fine. What I do want to get here is just a little bit more of a separation of the back and the front wing. So I'm going to just take some of this and just extend it further than what it is on the photo. And in doing so, I'm also going to just define just a little bit of a gap in between those feathers over there as well. Get a nice little bit of dark running along over here. So you've got that dark versus the light. And now you've got a distinct separation between those feathers over there. Cool. Now those edges, I just want to make sure that they've got a nice little bit of a curve to them, because as well that separates each of these individual feathers from each other. Yeah, awesome. So I'm just touching up one or two little places where the wood isn't quite covered yet. There we go. One pair of wings done. Before we continue, I want to briefly tell you about my real-time paint and draw along art classes on my website. For a very small amount, you can get access to over 400 paint and draw along tutorials where you pack out your art supplies and you follow along as I show and explain to you in step-by-step detail how to complete each project. There are classes in acrylic, oil, watercolor, pencil, soft pastel, and even lesser known mediums like pen and ink and scratchboarding. There's a link in the description below. Take a look. You'll be amazed at the awesome classes available there. Alrighty, let's continue from where we left off. Maybe what we can do at the same time is it is more or less the same colors. It's just got a bit more of the Paynes grey in it. So let's see. The Paynes grey is this color over here. So I'm just going to take some Paynes grey, bring it this side into there so that we can see that mixing happening over there. Dip my brush in the water because I do now need to do long lines. So can you see that's a bit of a lighter color? You can bring in a bit more of the white as well if you want, just to get it grey. Let's work that in over there. Where else do we see that? There's a bit of a greyness over there in that vicinity. It's not quite black, and it becomes black. There's some grey over here as well. That even seems to have a bit of brown in it. Cool, now let's take some neat Paynes grey, because that's now our black. Get a little bit of water in there just so that it flows nice and easy off the brush, so we can get these nice long lines. And over the top of that, in other words to the left, on the top of the feather, in our case it's on the left. Just going to run this line all the way up there to get that silhouette. And here where they meet, just a light little shading. Just a quick little shading between the two. So then you've got it lighter here and darker there, and that makes it look like it's curling like that. It's curving. Awesome. Let's wash that brush. Let's pick up some white. Pick up a fair amount onto the brush now, because we need to get these feathers in here. And I'm making sure to have those three distinct different little angles and things and shapes there on that bottom edge to show that there are multiple feathers there. You're not just looking at one. Okay, that comes up and it tends to sort of end around there. And it is fading in with that other grey line we put there. It starts off like a grey and then it gradually gets darker. So as I go up, I'm going to make it darker and darker. To the right, under here it's black. yeah, this area here seems to be brown, so I'm going to go back to the burnt umber again. Comes in over there, all the way up there to essentially to the feet. So you can see I've drawn in absolutely no detail on the inside of the bird, because what we're going to do there is we'll go over to a larger brush. So I'm going to use this 1 centimeter Filbert brush, and I'm going to block the whole thing in with Paynes grey. Because what that's going to do is going to give us that beautiful dark base. On which we can create these nice, beautiful, bright highlights of the hummingbird. Every now and again I'm dipping my brush inside the water. Just so that I can get the paint to flow nicely off the brush. I'll take it up there as far as I can without it touching any of the edges. Alright, so now I can use this paint to plot out my inner details. For example, I can see from here around there are these darks. Then we have that green, that beautiful green running along there. So I'm going to leave myself just that little bit of a green, that gap there where the green is going to be for now. Okay, this comes around and then there. In that vicinity where where the green and the blue flip over, and then here's the purple. In other words, I'm just going to give myself little tiny indications. If I take there from the wing comes down here, comes down a little bit further, then there's that little bit of blue over there, and the blue also runs down sort of there. It's super rough, I know, I understand that. Because you can't now leave all of this empty, we need the dark, but what I'm doing is just leaving the tiniest little bit of a lighter bit over there, just to remind me what goes where. Okay, all of this is blue and purple. We're happy with that. I'm going to block that in solid. Can you see there? That's where that little green line is. So I've got it slight amount of wood shining through. And I'm going to come in and darken it until I can just make it out. That's great. That's fabulous. That's exactly what I want. The same there with that little blue line over there. And I think for the most part here, all of this we can, it's a lot of pink. We can figure that out. So there's no lines needed over there. And then over here, we'll have to go over to just a finer brush. Just a smaller brush, because we quite frankly just can't get in there. So yeah, I think I'll use just that little fine round that we used earlier. I'm going to get myself just here till the beak. Go all the way around the beak, and that's will stop. And carefully go all the way around the eye. The eye is black, but we first want to get its shape. Let's get everything around it. And once we're happy everything is around it, because then you'll have all sorts of other little colors and highlights and stuff that will make that circle where the eye is visible again when we do the eye, so that we won't lose that roundness. Really important that we don't lose the roundness. Alrighty, yeah, that's great. Okay, let's take a look. Now that we've got this black on the brush, there's a little bit more black coming in on that feather in this area over here. That's fine. Yeah, I think this black can come down a little bit further. Like that. Awesome. So let's take some white. So what's nice about Paynes grey, it's a blue-black. So the minute you add white to it, you get a blue-grey. And here, this bird's now outside in nature. So with this black is going to reflect some of the sky color around it. So just by adding white, you're instantly getting a nice, correct highlight. Okay, so to get a nice feather type of texture, we're going to use little dabs and dashes. So let me zoom in close on that head, and I'll show you how we do that. Alrighty, so I'm going to just I'm sticking with this little grey color that we've got here, and I'm just going to use little tiniest little dabs and dashes. Remember here, the feathers are super short. So just the tiniest little dabs and dashes is going to give you that feathery effect. See at the top it is now lighter because it's catching sunlight. And as the paint gets off the brush, I've got less paint, I'm going to just use that little bit of paint to create that little bit of a highlight over there. Cool, let's go lighter. As we can see around the eye, there's a bit of like a white mark over there. And a little highlight over there. There's some white. So everything is being put in with these little dabs and dashes. Okay, let's now go to a darker color. I'm even just working in a little bit of white into that burnt umber there for this area over here. There's some dabs and dashes. So what we're looking to get here is just that the rounding on the head. So otherwise everything else below that is dark. So we can go over to back to the Paynes grey. but just off black, the tiniest little bit of white inside that paint. So I actually washed my brush there now. It wasn't going any lighter, or it wasn't going any darker anymore. Just like that, because we do want just some detail over here. Just a suggestion of that detail. You must barely see it. That's cool. That's great. I'm happy with that. Okay, then now we can go lighter again. Let's continue adding wherever we see these little grey dabs and dashes. And don't be shy to go over previous marks that you've put. Because what happens is the feathers overlap each other. Yay, now we can get going with some of these other colors. So let's see. Next up, we've got some blue. So I'm going to take some white and work that into the blue there and get that right color. Yeah, let's rather start with a color that's a little bit too dark. We can always come back in and lighten it, add highlights, because when we're painting in oil and acrylic, you always start with a dark and you go lighter. Cool, and I can see some of these blues running all the way around to there. There's some nice greens, but in between those greens is the blues. So I am now obviously using the photo as a guide on where these little colors are going, but I'm not trying to get them exact. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. And besides, in 2 seconds, remember, this is colors that's glistening in the sun. It's like a metallic effect. So what's going to happen is these colors are going to, in a split second, is going to be a different color at a different place anyway. So I'll just use these guys here as a guide to tell me roughly where to put what. Yeah, it's looking good. Then coming down over here, if there's anything that's distinct, yeah, I'll definitely put that in. What's more important is that you sort of try and judge the size of these marks more accurately. Great, let's get some more white into that to get ourselves a nice little highlight. Again, you see I'm just stealing little bits of white as I need them. Now we'll just highlight a few of these guys here and there where we see it. Don't overdo it. Yeah, that's good enough over there. Cool bananas. What's our next color? The green. So let's put some white down there. Let's bring our green down. Let's see, what does it look like? Not quite the green we need, eh? We need a bit of yellow into that. So I'm just going to nick a bit of yellow over here. get more white. More yellow. Yeah, now we're starting to get a nice color. I'm happy with that. Cool, there's a few of those marks here. That's all of that. And the other greens are these kind of colors. More of a greeny green. There's just a few little dots. Wow, look at that. Just a few little random dots. I think I'll make it just slightly lighter, because what's going to happen is, as the paint dries, it will now darken. There's another little spot over there. Okay, let's see. Over here we've got some more grey. Sort of a browny grey running around the eye over there. There's one or two little lighter dots, just defining that. And there's a little line over there, just defining that. That's enough for over there, I think. What we can add there, though, so let's clean the brush. Let's just take some Paynes grey and just get that little dark in over there. Because that's obviously just a little bit of a dent where the nose is. Alright, so can you see now we know exactly where the eye is. So now we can work in that eye. So the first thing I can see is that there's a bit of burnt sienna in that little bottom edge over there. So I'm just going to put that in there. Let's take some burnt umber. Carefully go around these edges. Yeah, cool. Just working that in and making sure I don't lose that little bit of a burnt umber over there. I'm going over to the Paynes grey. Let's get dark over there, dark over there. Cool. So now that will have to dry before we can add that highlight on. So let's continue down here and let's add some of those little pinky colors in. Let's steal a bit more white. Put him down there. Let's see what's happening with this. With this guy. It's mostly that color. I see some other pinky bits, lighter yellow, redder pinky bits as well. So that's fine. We always start dark, and then we go lighter. Alright, so let's add a few of these little guys in and around this vicinity. Just a few little dabs and taps, not too many. just to start suggesting that there's a few little things starting to reflect over there. It's over here though. Here we need to do some distinct feather shapes. So what's important here is to get those directions and the shapes, sort of the size of those shapes, reasonably correct. So I can see they're hanging down at a bit of an angle like this. Okay, then it does continue down this way. So for now I think I'll just continue down here by the chest area. Let's get some, goes right up against the edge over there. Okay, so keep checking those shapes and directions. Alrighty, let's see here. We've got that wing comes down sort of, maybe just add a few little dabs and dashes there just to plot out where that comes. Alright, so now we've got a few little marks coming like that, and then we've got feathers coming out in this direction like that. Alrighty, and then the pinks seem to be gradually just disappearing on us in that direction over there. Over there, they're getting darker, so I'll work in some more of the Dioxazine purple into our mix, so that there's less white in it. And we have some of this coming all the way down to here. Dabs and dashes. Yeah, it's looking good, eh? Cool. Starting to see a bit of a feather effect, eh? What's the next color there? Blue. So let's go back to the blue. Get a bit more water in there because that's now started to dry up, that paint. Okay, and let's start adding some of these blues. In between here. comes around. There's a blue line over there. There's a blue line over there. And here's a few little blue marks and things on this, on the feather here as well, for some reason. And then going all the way around that, there's distinct blue guys. And they do tend to be sort of in between the purple ones. So I'm happy just putting some of them in between there then. Then over here in this vicinity, heading down towards from the foot upwards, quite a distinct amount of blue feathers. So the purples and pinks become blues. So just dabs and dashes. Keep it nice and dark over there, not too many over there. Alrighty, I think let's go back to the purple for now. I'm seeing one or two little dashes of purple in this vicinity over here. Not too bright, so I mustn't go too bright on that. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, let's work more white into this. Let's get that pinky kind of a color. Let's see what happens. Is that quite the pink that we're seeing on the photograph? Not quite, but I'm going to use some of this. And I'm going to just highlight some of these existing marks. Yeah, you know what, I think I'm actually reasonably happy with that for the most part. Right, so just to make that a little bit brighter and redder, I'll take just a tiny dash of Alizarin crimson. And work that into there. And that's going to give us more of that pinky highlight. Cool, let's add a few of these. So some of these here are quite bright on the chest area. Great, there's a little bit of this in this vicinity here as well. Yeah, I think that's enough. Okay, let's wash the brush and let's highlight our blue. So pick up some more white, work that into the blue. And in between, yeah, there's a few little brighter blues in between the pinks as well. Yeah, awesome. That's great. So I think I'm going to go just one lighter on the blue. Just here and there. I'm going to highlight those little highlights here and there. That'll just add like an extra little bit of shimmer onto some of them, but don't overdo it. Just here and there. Okay, let's go back to our greens. I think we'll start with this green over here. Let's start getting some of that in over there. So again, I'm just looking at these shapes that it's forming and just trying to get myself a really rough little indication of some of these shapes. Okay, so that comes around and it meets up around here. Just doing my best to get the positioning as accurate as I can judge it. And I can see there are some little light darker greens and stuff happening around this vicinity over here. So just as that paint gets less and less on the brush, I'm just popping a few of those greens in there. Okay, this green comes up. Yeah, it's probably to about that vicinity there. That. I'm going to put one or two greens just in between those blues and things as well. Just there where they meet. Awesome. Let's go lighter on that. So it's more white and more yellow. Okay, and then we're just adding highlights inside these guys that we've already put down there. Try and be nice and loose and flowing with these little marks. And that way they'll come out more organic. And look more realistic. Yeah, you know what, I think this can probably come up a little bit further over there. Let's maybe work on getting this little tie in where the wing comes out. Let's work on that a little bit. I'll take just a bit of water because all that paint there is now started to dry on me. So take some more water, white and brown, just to get a lighter little version over there. Because I can see here is just a little bit of a highlight. So if I can get that highlight in there, that's already separating the wing and the body. Okay, now we can darken it up a little bit more. like that. And then here there's some brown. Just put them in nice little strokes like that. And in between the blues, there's a bit of browns happening around here. There's that distinct little line over there, so I'm making sure he's there. Okay, and then here's just a few little, maybe a bit of that burnt sienna for a change, eh? Just here and there, touches of burnt sienna inside the body area. There we go. Quite subtle, quite subtle. And now here I'm just going to add some more the browns, or the greens and the blues, sorry. The greens and the blues. But subtle, because it's dark over here, it's not light. So you can tell that this is wing and that's body. Cool. Right, so over here, I'm going to take just some of these, the browns like we used for the wing, because there are a few just little browner guys, and they do seem to be running in like rings, like this. Yeah, there we go, that's about that. Let's see, there's a lighter. That highlight on the wing needs to go lighter. I didn't get that quite light enough. And then we've got that same highlight here on this wing over here. There's little tail feathers, not wing, tail feathers, sorry. So that runs up over there. And then we've got one with a bit more burnt sienna in it. Over there. There's also a bit of burnt sienna kind of colors. So this area's got weird. So I'm just adding all these little abstract shapes in the correct colors. I'm just going to add them in here. Because we can't quite figure out what's going on here. It's obviously a whole bunch of little smaller feathers happening there. But we can't quite see. So we've got all that. And the same with the foot. The foot is quite difficult to see, so it seems to be like, let's take maybe some burnt umber and some burnt sienna. and a bit of white. And let's just block this whole foot area in here. That should sort of give us some form of a shadow. Now all I can see is just one highlight. So I'm going to take that and just highlight it with some white. We can see one highlight running around here like this. And then we can see just little, what would you call them, talons? There, there, and there. Like that. There does seem to be a bit of an in-between color just over there. In other words, all we've got there is just a suggestion of the foot. We can't see any detail, so just a suggestion. That's good enough. Alrighty, let's see. I'm going to take a bit of white. There's just one or two little highlighty bits. Just a touch of white here and there. Just to really bring out some of those little reflections. Don't overdo it though. Just one or two little brighter bits. That's probably enough. Okay, I think that over there is dried now, so take some neat white. Let's add that highlight in the eye. Yeah, that looks good, hey? I just seem to have lost the rounding over there ever so slightly, so I'm just bringing that rounding back over there. We do seem to have a brown continuing just slightly above the eye. Great. I think the easiest way now for us to do that beak is let's just take some white. So I'm just picking up a little bit of water. Let's block that whole beak in. Up to there where it goes inside the flower. There's a line there. And then there's a line there. Cool. And I'll leave just that tiny little underside piece over there. Because that guy's dark. So I'll take some burnt umber. Just neat. Obviously with some water in it so it can flow off the brush. And let's just work in that little line over there. And then the shadow on the underside. You can say the bottom jaw. There we go, make sure he goes inside there. And there I see if somehow I've made a mark on the background, so I'm just lifting that out. Right, let's stand back. Let's see what does our painting look like at this stage. Yeah, I think it's coming along quite nicely. So if you'd like to watch me do the flowers and the rest of the painting, including the background and so on, why don't you hop over to my website and you can follow it over there, along with hundreds of other classes in drawing, painting, you name it. So I hope you enjoyed that painting of the hummingbird. I certainly had great fun painting it. Good luck with your hummingbird. I'll see you next time.